What's up, everybody, and welcome to TransWorld Tuesdays. We are so glad you are here with us for a very special Legendary Haunt Tour Aftermath edition of TransWorld Live. Thanks for joining us. We've got some birthdays real quick to shout out. Jeff Holmes from IWG, his birthday's today. David Quinn, birthday is tomorrow. Naomi Heckman, her birthday is Friday. And on Sunday, we got a big one. John Eslich, Johnny from Haunt Scene, and Paul Lanner from Haunters Against Hate. Birthdays are on Sunday. But we got a lot to unpack. It was an epic weekend. So we can't do this without some people that really made this tour shine. TransWorld Live, help me welcome Rich from TransWorld and Ben from Netherworld. Guys, what's up? We got Rich? Yeah, buddy. Awesome. Uh-oh. No problem. Ben's having issues, so that's okay. We're going to hang for a second here. We hope you guys are doing well. Sean, what's going on? We're glad you're here. We can't have a Tuesday without you. So if you were a part of the Legendary Haunt Tour this weekend, let us know in the chat. And always, if you guys are watching, we want to know that you're here. And unfortunately, it doesn't just let us know, hey, so-and-so is watching. You got to comment, and then that way we can see you in there. Anthony, we're so glad you are here and really glad that you enjoyed Legendary. That's awesome. Really excited to talk to Rich and Ben, kind of go and unpack this weekend. Obviously, as you guys know, we had 4 epic haunted attractions in the Dent Schoolhouse, the USS Nightmare, the Factory of Terror, and the Akron Schoolhouse and Laboratory. And we had a special stop to Tater's Farm, the Lind Fruit Farm. Super excited for that as well. Was really, really nice. I personally got a chance to join the tour early Saturday morning, but this gentleman was here the whole time because he was our host. Ladies and gentlemen, let's bring out Rich from TransWorld. Rich, what's going on?
What's up,
buddy? How are you? Good. Holy cow. Did we have our hands? You had your hands filled with Legendary. What a great turnout.
Yeah, it was great. It actually went really smooth. I don't know that it was hands full. It was pretty smooth this year.
Well, you and Anne-Marie did a heck of a job and made sure everybody had, a great time. We were polling people the whole time, talking to them, and they were loving the haunts. They were loving the service, loving the food.
Yeah.
How was the experience? You want to start in the beginning? Like, how was Dent when you guys got there?
All the haunts were amazing. Dent's very unique. It was a very cool place to visit. Those guys, everything there is meticulous. It's like, they really try to do everything perfect. So it was a nice setup. We really enjoyed that. We enjoyed the USS Nightmare, when we went to our second stop. The only hiccup I think we had was the crazy traffic from the concert that was going on there.
Yeah.
So, beyond that, everything went really well. The boat cruise at night was fun, and it was a twist. We've never done anything like that on Legendary, so that was a good time.
People were talking about it.
Yeah, and then we went on to Lynn Farm, and then off to John's place out there at in Akron. So it was fun. Like they were all unique, and I'm sure we'll get into them. But it was a very cool tour. It was probably one of the least stressful, even though there was a decent amount of driving. Normally, the haunts are pretty close to each other, so we're not the amount of driving we did. But a lot of people. We didn't have a lot of people on the bus this year just because most people drove their cars. So, and I think it was because they flew into Cincinnati and then they, wanted to leave from Cleveland and not come back to Cincinnati. So they drove their own cars and went from there. But, it was still a really good tour.
It was a great looking crowd. And like we were talking about, people were genuinely happy. It was great to see pictures from the after party on Friday night, being on a boat. How often do we get to do that? Like you mentioned. Just
Right.
awesome to see a whole like horde of haunters and people that love our industry just going into a fruit farm on a Saturday morning in Columbus. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. That was cool. And it was actually nice to have the breakup going to the Lynn Farm Tater's place. It was kind of cool. It was a neat experience. Obviously, I really enjoyed the apple cider there. If you happen to go there, you can convince Tater to send you some. You want to try the Gold Rush. It was definitely my favorite. So.
Oh my! And he sells these chips. I know we're kind of getting into a tangent here, but I know Robert's working his magic with Ben here. So, but he works. He does these chips, which I know we got a chance to taste, and we've had those before. But
Yeah.
they're amazing. What a great alternative, a healthy alternative of sorts to a potato chip.
Yeah, they're actually really cool. The apple chips, so really, really good tasting. I picked up a couple items. I got a sweatshirt and a pair of sweatpants for Jen, from the Lynn Farm. Maybe she'll wear them to TransWorld. Who knows?
I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
It was a great stop.
Yes.
Really, because everybody, it broke it up a little bit, but it also, we got to see Tater in a different light and in a different industry. And
Yeah, it was different seeing that at the farm and his whole family, his aunts, his cousins. They're all
yeah,
kind of fun.
so hospitable too.
Oh, absolutely. I was actually teasing him. I asked him if there was only one hair salon in that town because every single one of them had the same haircut. So
We love you.
It's cutting everyone's hair, but it was all the same. They all look great, but it was funny.
We love you, Lynn family.
Yeah.
I literally know, like, because you're only packing for a weekend, so like half of my suitcase was stuff I took home from Tater's farm.
Yeah.
so happy to support him. And Robert was working his magic here to bring on Mr. Ben Armstrong from Netherworld. We're super happy. He was our ghost host with the most there. What's up, buddy? How are you?
Doing great.
We were just talking about Tater's farm. What a cool experience in the midst of all these haunts.
Oh yes, we got a big thing of dried apple slices.
Yes.
So yeah, that was good.
Well,
all the snacks and things, and we got to taste different ciders. I was a little bit worried about if these were strong ciders, but no, they were just regular ciders, but they were quite tasty. Yeah.
Really, just great wholesome stuff right off the farm.
There's
Really
a
nice.
story about how they won all these competitions, and then they like loaned their cider to somebody else, and they won competitions. I don't know. You can ask Tater about it. You could do an entire TransWorld live on the subject of the apples.
Oh, and he's so knowledgeable. Like we all talk to him, obviously, in the industry about fog and the things that he does with froggies, but he's really knowledgeable about apples. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's a fun thing to be involved with. It's a very appealing business.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we got to dive into the haunts. Obviously, we're glad we got a chance to hang out with Tater in his natural element, but can we start with Dent? How did you like Dent? What brought you to Dent? What was awesome about it for those that missed it?
So it was a very interesting tour and a lot of history that we saw and a lot of excellence for sure. Talking about Dent, I've been to Dent a handful of times. It had been maybe, I want to say something like 10 years or so maybe since I'd been there. And of course, it's in an old schoolhouse. And it's very landlocked. They only have so much land there to work with, but they've maxed it out. They've done so much with the place. There's just so many things to see, but they're really into the theme of the story of, Charlie the janitor. And it really shows. I mean, you arrive, you walk past the schoolhouse, there's queue lines, there's a bus parked out front. They have a really interesting kind of Halloween carnival, sort of a queue line you go through. And then you go on into the show, and things about Dent that stand out. Number one, I mean, the place is so extremely detailed, but it is very much designed, with an eye to, like, sometimes, in Netherworld can be accused of this. There's like a lot. It's like almost too much junk. But Dent very much reminds me of the 13th Gate. It's like everything is very purposeful. Like everything is placed. It's there for a reason. to create a specific mood. It's just not like, oh, I have another 15 suitcases I'm going to toss in here. They do it for what seems to be a good reason. And as you're going through the show, the actors were so spot on, but it's just they're very well designed to like slide out of slots in the environment. The things they do and the things that they say really are on theme. They're not just kind of winging it, but they're very fast, and a lot of them are very quiet, and the audio was so appropriate. Like in some haunts, it's so loud the actor has it's difficult for them to even be heard, but in there, like in certain spots, like a whisper. And they had also really scaled up onto the stunts. They had a ton of stunts, and I didn't remember them really having any long ago, but they must have 5 or 6, and many were built in house. They had this bat creature that leapt down from the ceiling and like landed and then flew up. And then we had a gal that was being grabbed by a giant snake, and she was kicking and screaming, and it was like pulling her up into the ceiling. Then the head of the snake was there. They had a guy, everyone was remarking there's like a kind of an insane asylum section, and he was running around the corner of the padded room, like all around you, like a guy just crawling on the wall. It was very, very effective. But the whole attraction was just really elaborately done, really tight, clean, precise. Everything's working, everybody's working. It's just running like a well-oiled machine. But anyway, you go through the main attractions. You go in and out of things. You go downstairs. You go on the first level. You go downstairs. You go outside. You go to the crown area. Then you go through like a warehouse that has higher ceilings. They had a lot of catacombs and things, which they had made all the skulls themselves with plastic or concrete or something like this. So huge amount of work. But you go through all this stuff, and finally you end up out in kind of like a chainsaw run, and then you end up outside, and then you go into their midway. And their midway was spectacular. I mean, there's a trend. A lot of us are doing really elaborate midways, and this was beautifully done one. It had, say, at least 4 mini escape games. It had food trailer with donuts and all kinds of delights. It had photo sales where they took your picture earlier. It had just a lot of photo ops, they had 2 different museums there. They had a museum of kind of the history of haunted houses in the area in Cincinnati. They had a museum that had a display of all these.
Oh no, we lost him.
He's gone.
Robert's going to work to get him back, but holy cow. I know when we were talking to Bud, I mean, just getting an idea of the layout of this place and the history and the story that kind of encapsulates the whole tour. It's awesome to see. I'm so sad that I missed it.
Yeah, and Ben knows a lot of the history. They were talking about some of it. So.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, you're good.
But no, it was really great, and also like they had a lot of photo ops, sort of whole little sets you could go into, take pictures and interact. They had an electric chair and a bunch of actors out there. So, but it was a really just well done. Everything they touch is extremely just top notch, and just really well done. It's hard to say other than that. And they had just done this massive brand new pumpkin show where they had it at the zoo, and they had or the botanical gardens or something like that. So they were just rushing back from taking down a gazillion pumpkins to go do legendary, then flip it to do a blackout night. So they're pretty busy.
I'm glad they opened up for us. Thanks, obviously, to the entire crew for making that possible. I know people were raving about it. So
I got to meet Pumpkin Smasher and Susan Gibson. So
hey,
he's a guy people will bring pumpkins to, and he will smash them.
Oh,
Spooky Gallagher, I suppose. Carry around mallet that's the safe mallet, and then he has the actual mallet that's going to smash the pumpkins. So
nice. Oh, well, I mean, how can you have a legendary tour unless you get a whole lot of haunters on a boat? Do you want to start talking? Can we move on to USS Nightmare?
Yeah, so that was kind of one that I was really pushing for, because one of the things about the Legendary Haunt Tour, you can go see haunts that cannot be seen at other tours. Right. This one in particular, the USS Nightmare, is it's like a a dredging barge type thing, and its purpose was to dig mud and stuff out of the from below, and it was old and rotten and about going out to pasture. And this is, I don't know, I'm going to say it was in excess of 30 years old. I think it's way older than that. I don't have the notes in front of me, but they bring it to this really great area. It's right on the waterfront near a bunch of bars and restaurants and fun places, but it can't stay there because that's like prime real estate. So
Sure.
the thing has to be hauled off to some swamp somewhere out in the middle of nowhere. And it's funny. At one point we were having a discussion, and I asked them what critters get on the boat. And they said one of the biggest problems were vultures. Vultures, wherever this thing is parked, like to catch their prey and go land on the ship and just eat them. And so there's bones and rot and vulture food everywhere. So never heard of having a vulture problem. It's kind of cool for a haunted house.
I bet a lot of haunts don't have that.
So normally they have to just get that thing out of there. Boom. When haunt season's over, there's no way you could tour it for any of the other shows. So
Sure.
it had to be like a legendary haunt tour. So we finally got to see it. But anyway, it's something to be said for going on something that's that old. I mean, the paint was peeling. There's all this incredible, equipment on board the ship. It's like the stuff that people spend months making. Like, look at this really cool engine room I made. And it's like, well, it's all real. It's all real right there. So we went in through this ship, and there was just a lot that's in there. I mean, it's been around a long time. Many things stand out. In particular, to me, they had some gantries that ran over where the paddle wheels used to be. So you were out over the water on these kind of slanted kind of paths, and it was really cool to be in that kind of environment. It felt very scary, like you could fall off and fall in the water and get wet. I don't know, but there was also a really neat thing. I don't want to give it away. I will. So,
yeah, do it.
I've never been to Mysterious Mansion in Gatlinburg. There's a thing to look out over a thing. It's the scariest thing in a haunted house. You look down, suddenly it tilts, and you're like you're gonna fall 2 stories. Well, they had this thing. They got an impaler in there somehow, and I don't know how they did it. They probably hacked that thing into 400 pieces and reassembled it. But so you pass by the impaler at one point. You go up to a higher level, and you come through a room, and there's this big kind of balcony overlooking the impaler. And they get like 8 or 9 people out there, and they're saying something, and suddenly, boom, it drops. And so you're about to think you're going to tumble off and fall like 2 stories onto this monster. So that was a good one. But
Nice.
Most of it, you were just going through these tight spaces and being confronted by tons of actors just throughout the entire ship. Just lots of stuff, lots of scenes. Just kind of working your way through it, and it's very long. I mean, I think, like I said, a lot of the scenes were very small, so there was a lot of them, but they were just doing everything they could to work with the space.
Yes.
And so, yeah, you worked your way through the whole thing. And then, of course, got some chainsaws here at the end, which is at the haunted house. But,
of course.
They had a big clown component. And I think part of their storyline is that it was, circus was on this ship when whatever dastardly thing happened. So they were there as well. They also had a thing. They have an extreme component that we didn't do, because I know a lot of times haunters don't like that kind of stuff. Some do, but they were getting ready for it that night, so they were kind of wrapping up to like have customers come in and have a more almost gamified experience where it's almost like escape rooms and things. Like that. So, but no, it was really neat being out there and seeing this, and really it was. When were we going to ever get a chance to see it unless you lived in that area?
Right.
So
Right.
they were very gracious to open it up, and we took a cruise on the river. The company that owns the USS Nightmare also owns a cruise line, and they have at least 2 different ships that sail out there. So we were on one of them. So we were able to have a long discussion about what we saw in the attractions for both sets of attractions, because Bud and Josh from Dent were also there. So yeah, it was really good. We got to have a really good conversation. There was a lot of questions from the audience about things that they had seen. So no, it was really good. And that's one of the fun things we try to do with Legendary, is to really have a chance to talk to people who create these events, and what were they thinking, what's in the design, what was I seeing, and so it's really kind of good in that way, and it's a really good chance to learn from other peers that you have.
And I just want to highlight that for a moment. Like, absolutely, you're going to get a chance. We've talked on our road to Legendary about the networking opportunities,
Right.
but you also assemble a formal panel on both Friday and Saturday night and ask questions that the audience can then learn from, including, about insurance or how they do things or how their season was or what they're looking to do better.
That's a key point, I think, of this tour. Is it's the first time that we can get together.
Right.
Many other haunters also will get together like a week or so later at IAPA, and after that, you've got a pretty long wait until we get to the later shows. So it's really great to see everybody, and the first thing they're like is, "How was your season? What happened? What's this? What's this?" So what we did is the first night we just had a panel and we just talked to the owners of these attractions that we saw. And the second night, when we got to Factory of Terror, we first had a panel that we talked about the season.
Right.
And that one, we had Dwayne from 13th Gate,
Mm-hmm.
we had John from Hell's Gate,
Mm-hmm.
Henry from Nightmare on 13th. Gosh, there was somebody else. How can I forget?
Chris Stafford.
That guy. The guy I rode his car with. Yeah, Chris Stafford. So it was great because it was like, oh, so how was the season? And Chris was like, well, Chris, how many haunts do you have? He went like, started getting at his fingers. It was like, I don't know, 42, and people were like, what? It wasn't 42, but it was.
I know.
So it was. So we basically talked about how the season went, and that was really kind of insightful and interesting to kind of go over that. But since we're talking about that, I'll basically tell you guys, essentially a lot of people reported a challenging season, and there's many people who said that their numbers were down. So we kind of dived into that, and we took some stuff from the audience. We tried to figure out what was going on, and it's really all over the map. I mean, regionally, there's a lot of people who had remarkable seasons, absolutely remarkable. There's people who had really challenging seasons. I think universally, the calendar was very weird, so people tend to. I'm not going to say this is true for everyone because everyone's at different stages of their evolution and different markets, and some people had terrible rainout years last year, so comparatively they were having a fantastic year. So it's hard to say. But a lot of people had a challenge with the calendar because the holiday, Columbus Day or Indigenous Peoples Day, that holiday is sort of usually the first Monday in October because the way the calendar felt, it was almost like in the second week. Mm-hmm. So that kind of shortened out for us. Like it's a huge Sunday, because people don't have school the next day. So that kind of thing, I think, was one of the effects. Also having Halloween all the way on a Thursday, it kind of, what's the big weekend? What's it going to be? Is Halloween weekend the weekend after Halloween or before? It's kind of a bit of a question. But people reported, and I'm generalizing here, but I would say that in general, people were light earlier in the season, and at the end they blew up and they did great. Mm-hmm. But not everyone made it over the hump. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So many people were down. Some people made it over the hump and then some. So it's kind of, we'll see a lot more as we talk to more people. But middle of the season, it was people. A lot of people were like starting to worry big time. So, but I don't know. We'll see. But there was a lot of people that said they had record years, so that's good to hear.
That's awesome.
And then we also talked about the insurance issue. There's discussions that we'll be talking more about later, but it's just insurance is getting more and more difficult, and there's more and more challenges for haunted attractions. Things are going on out there in the world, so it's a type of discussion we'll probably be having some panels and things on at TransWorld to talk about it because it's a serious kind of business related topic. But we talked about that a little bit there, at that panel. And then later in the evening at Factory of Terror, we had a panel with John and his team to talk about the attractions that we saw that day.
Yeah. Unbelievable stuff. And we could dive into that in a second here. Rich and I were having a chance at the beginning of our show to talk about the time at Tater's, the Lind Fruit Farm. Right. How was your experience?
At the fruit farm?
Yeah. We don't get to do that often. So,
Oh, I know. No, it was good. It was good. I think I don't somehow I think we were driving, so I think we got behind the buses, so we didn't have as much time as I would liked, over there. But we rolled in, and man, I saw there were so many people with our carts packed to the gills with
yes.
stuff. I couldn't believe it. Like I'm thinking, I flew here. I don't know. You guys are almost live around here or something. But people were buying stuff like crazy, and it was a big venue. I mean, it was like I guess like a barn type structure, but it was a fully done up store with it was massive in size. And then I saw they had some things out back, like some things to shoot apple cannons and stuff like that. That was kind of cool. And of course, we had a really delicious sandwich for the road, and they were giving out these donuts, and the donuts were, I guess, some were the apple cider donuts, and some had like a maple glaze, and some had like a sprinkling of other stuff, and they're delicious for sure. And then, like I said, we got in there and then ran right into Tater, and he was like, he had a sample trays of the different ciders. There was Evercrisp, but there's something that they invented.
Ludicrous.
Apple. I don't know what's happening. They get two other apples together and magic happens. I'm not sure. So they crossbreed these strains of apples.
Yep.
This special apple you can only get there. So
it was wild to see all these haunters just loving nature. It was great. It was great. But we did get a chance then to go to John's first haunt, the Akron Schoolhouse and Laboratory in Akron. What a history there. Talk about history.
Oh yeah. It's funny because I'm in Atlanta, but when Netherworld's been around for 28 years, this is our 28th season. And in the early years, we had a lot of actors that would travel to work for us, particularly people from Bloodview Haunted House that were up in the Cleveland area. And they would always tell me stories of the Schoolhouse and Lab because as kids, they grew up going to the Schoolhouse and Lab. It was the haunted house. I think John created some really good handout material for both the Factory of Terror and also for the Schoolhouse and Lab. And it had a lot of information, but I believe that the Schoolhouse and Lab have been around for 51 years continuously. The lab got added later, but the Schoolhouse, like 51 years of operation.
Yes.
So we had an opportunity to go and do a walkthrough of it years ago at a Midwest, I believe. And it's got to have been at least 10 years. I think it was the first year that TransWorld was fully doing the show. So we came in the day and we got to do like kind of a lights on kind of walkthrough to kind of see it. And there's all these epic classic things about the Schoolhouse and Lab that have made so big an impression on people. So to go back and to see it, but it was an old attraction, and it needed help, modernizing and things of this nature. And I think a lot of people were interested in getting it, but I was very glad to hear John get a hold of it because he's in the building business. So he knows how to handle buildings. He knows infrastructure. He knows asbestos abatement, anything that he might need to do. So it was really good that he got those attractions. And what a change! What a change! What I would say was they were modernized. There's a lot of new stuff in there. Oh, am I still here?
Oh yeah, you're good.
Yeah, things are jumping around so much. It's like I don't know what's happening. But anyway, so it was very modernized, but lots of the classic stuff remained and was curated and was there. So it's kind of like you get the Haunted Mansion from Disney World. You change stuff. Well, it's a haunted house. You got to change stuff, but he kept the main stuff. And man, have they done changes. I mean, the biggest changes I would say attached to the Schoolhouse, there was a giant event center, but it was sort of like it looked like a school cafeteria. It had white ceiling tiles and it had, it was, fluorescent lights. This was what was there. And we came into it and it was this really cool haunted house waiting room. I think one side we didn't see was full of escape games and other things like that, but it was done up super nice. And they had added a bar in there. You can hear a lot about bars. There was a lot of bars on that tour. So anyway, they had a bar inside, and then outside in the courtyard, there's a big gravel area with fences and containers that block it off from you can't just wander in there. So the Schoolhouse and Lab are right next to each other.
Sure.
and the two buildings. And so in the middle there, they had another big bar, and they had tons, of course, of props and cool stuff to look at out there and places to hang out, like fire pits and all this. So there's two bars on site at the Schoolhouse and Lab. So anyway, also the lab. What a cool building.
Yeah.
If you've been there, you got to see the back of it. On the back of it, there's like an Art Deco statue that spans the size of the building, and it's the goddess of flight, and she's holding a blimp. Because a lot of the research on blimps and on parachutes and everything like that was done originally at that lab that's now a haunted attraction, and so it's sort of like one of the birthplaces of the blimp.
Yes. And,
yeah, and they have this. Yeah, the tunnel. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, they have a wind tunnel, like a 3 or 4 story wind tunnel that goes all the way down, and it's one of the cool scenes there. But anyway, that's a beautiful building with all kinds of really amazing bits to it. So anyway, long story short, we went through both attractions with actors, and the actors were on their game. The whole place was decked out. It was packed with modern stuff you would see, modern animations, tons of set decoration, and lots of props from vendors you would recognize. But also, like I said, you'd see peppered throughout all the classic stuff. They had the classic vampire scene that's so famous that's there at the Schoolhouse. Years ago, it was like the Happy Haunting of America, that Dan Roebuck produced piece, and the famous thing where the vampire runs down that.
Yes.
5 years ago, whenever it was. They had they of course had the skeleton on the toilet, which has been there since the dawn of man. They had a whole bunch of the original props that were there. Like the graveyard area was very similar. And then, of course, you get down to the basement of the Schoolhouse. The whole basement is done up like this castle, and it was almost like it was original. I mean, there were new scares and new set deck in there, but all the walls were there, all the original stuff you would remember, like the famous eel that comes up from below to eat a body. It was there. And I think that inspired Scare Factory to make the bear eel. For you guys remember it from a million years ago, they had an eel come out of a barrel to eat a body. This is like year 2 or 3 of Scare Factory. That's how long ago that was. But anyway, that thing is still going, it's still munching. And then there's, so that all that stuff that was still there at the Schoolhouse, like I said, then filled with a whole bunch of really good new stuff. They had the cantilevered room where you walk across it and suddenly it tilts based on your weight. But they'd added a bunch of stuff. They had a little cool mirror set in there. And then we finished out the Schoolhouse, and then of course we walked across the way to the lab. And the thing about the lab that is so famous is, of course, the Tesla coil. They have huge Tesla coil, and they used to have a setup where they had a secondary on the roof and a secondary, in the big room inside. So what the guy would do is when he didn't have any actors or any customers in his room, he could flip a switch and then blast the coil off from the roof. I don't think they're doing the roof coil anymore for some reason, but the coil inside the show remains, and it's a huge and powerful Tesla coil.
Yes.
With the lab though, it's a lot narrower, and I think it's probably taller. So you kind of work your way up the stairs. With both of these things, you kind of work your way up the stairs, and you kind of end up going down as you go through it. But it was just packed with scenes. It was mainly the original lab I went to. It kind of had a mishmash of scenes, but this one was primarily focused on everything being lab based. So there was a lot of weird mutations and medical scenes, and that was the primary focus, I would say, of the lab. They had one room that was really interesting. It was like a spider room, and we went up onto a gantry, and we walked across. When we came down, then we walked through it. So it was like we just kept going through this whole section of spiders. But there was a lot. But one of the other famous things at the lab is when you're at the top floor, you go out on this catwalk, and then you look down, and you're looking all the way down 3 or 4 stories, all the way down. And there it had all these strobes, and it looked like a meteorite had just smashed it.
Yes.
It was really cool. And so that was there, and all the classic bits. So anyway, we got to see the whole lab, go through it, and the Tesla coil was kind of near the end, but there's a few other ending bits, and they have an outdoor area, like a chainsaw run and all that. So anyway, it was really good to see that the classic parts of the show that people, so many people grew up, watching. I think when I was reading the thing that John had written that he handed out, he said he grew up going to the Schoolhouse and Lab. So how appropriate that he got a hold of it and was able to both take it to, modern times, but also preserve the things that make it so special. So
That's
that was
right.
a fun trip, and really, once again, one of the legendary things that
Oh
you
yeah.
do on the legendary haunt tour.
It was a great choice. And just to kind of echo about that wind tunnel, you're very right. When you're looking down, I happened to be with a few folks that had never been to the attraction before, and they're looking down, and the comments were, how does he do that? How does he make that illusion happen? And then when you get to the bottom and you look up and you're like, oh no, that's a real hole through the middle of your building. It's just wild. It's wild. And it's very misleading. It looks so small from the outside, and we felt like the tour just was so long. I mean, it was wonderful.
Yeah, it was very cool. Very cool. Um,
Yeah.
I just enjoyed it because, like I said, it just had that. I just remember it. I've got a very active imagination, and when people tell me about haunted houses, especially back in the early days, 10, 20 years ago, I remember that these elements that they told me, and then
Yeah.
I was able to get to most of the ones I had heard that were legendary.
Right.
And the Schoolhouse and Lab and like the Beast and the Edge of Hell and ones like that. They're really old places that you'd always heard these crazy stories about, where they had some crazy thing like that wind tunnel or like the giant Tesla coil or
Yes.
the Beast and Edge of Hell, like the crazy slides. You just hear these stories. You're like, that can't be real. And you go there and, yep, it's real.
Well, not to be outdone, but John's second entry on the Legendary Haunt Tour and our final stop took us to the Factory of Terror.
Yeah.
Holy
Wow.
cow.
Well, I mean, it's really hard. There's so much there. It's almost, I'm kind of a good mind for haunted houses, but I was almost overwhelmed by the amount of stuff that was building. So we went to there, I think at the same Midwest where we went to
Yeah,
Schoolhouse and Lab years ago.
I think
And
so.
so essentially what we have here is we have a building in Canton, Ohio that is, I believe the original building was somewhere around 100,000 square feet. And I believe he's somehow gotten another 50. So he's got something like 150,000 square feet, which is,
Yes.
I mean,
Astronomical.
there's a lot of haunted houses back in the day that were happy to have 6,000 square feet.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
that was great. What a great day. But this place, and there are high ceilings. So
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
epic sort of presentation. So the way our trip went, we started off, we came in and we had two doors to choose from, and one of them led into the Christmas bar, and one led through another doorway. I forgot where it was. We sort of went into this backstage area, and then we came out to this massive bar. It was a huge bar, with, it was like like a really nice restaurant you could do with high
Yeah.
ceilings, all decked out, beautiful chairs, beautiful lighting, all set up, but it had like a Christmas theme to it.
Yeah.
And then right next to it was an even bigger one right there that was like their axe throwing. So they had multiple axe throwing lanes. They had some small kind of bowling thing they were putting in. A
Yep.
huge bar, a little darker, a little more like a fun, like a night. And the Christmas one was brighter. And then they had yet another gigantic room. Right next to it, there was like their gift shop, but it was like these 3 or 4 spaces were more than most people have in their entire attraction by far. So, and then it was, so then that's where we ate. So people were able to sit through all the different rooms in these areas, So, we had a really good meal, and I got to eat fast because we had to do all that. But
The show must go on.
that's right. So yeah, I had to go find all the people who were talking. I had to hunt them down in all the nooks and crannies, and we got them all together. We did this thing. We talked about the season and all that jazz. And then it was time to go into the actual attraction. So we all got up, we went outside, we walked around the building, and we came into the front portion of the building. And we kind of poured through this massive interior queue line. At that time, we passed bar number 3, which was a clown themed bar. And that's where people go and hang out if they come with an earlier time slot, So anyway, we go past that, and we enter the main attraction, and we kind of blast into the primary spot of it. So directly ahead of you was the first attraction, and there's 4 different haunted houses in the place. But somehow, I don't know how it happened, I ended up at a bar bar number 4. It was called Poison Ivy, and then like
Yep.
I was like, "Hey, have some shots," Like, this is great. I'm like, "Don't we have to do another panel later?" What is so anyway, we're in this bar, and it's all themed out as a greenhouse, and they've got all this cool stuff, and managing plants and stuff. And then there's the big haunt right there with huge trees, and everyone's in line. And I'm like, I'm starting to like, dude, I gotta. This is fun, but I got to go in these haunted houses. They're long. He's like, "Nah, it's good. It'll be good." So we hung out for a while. He showed me off to the side. He had a whole section that he called, what was he called it? The Underworld. And what it was like a haunted house, except it was a free flow walkthrough. It didn't have actors in it. It was kind of like going to Otherworld or Meow Wolf. So you could just wander through with your drink, and your friends, and find a creepy room and sit down and have fun. So, that's the Poison Ivy bar there.
Yeah.
So, anyway, it's kind of a different concept. And he'd even taken that. There's a lighting effect when we went at East Coast to Otherworld. There was a lighting effect that made everything appear black and white. And he placed that in one of the rooms. And it was crazy. I mean, it just makes everything look black and white. It's just a weird effect, like a yellowish light. But so we hung around there, and he also had a ton of games and VR all in this area, just kind of spaces to hang out. And then at that point, I was like, there were still people in line for the first haunt. So I'm like, okay, I got to go to some haunts. So I went into the second one, which was Industrial Nightmare.
Yes.
And it was a huge haunted house that was just packed with, like machinery. Of course, it probably was core to the concept of the Factory of Terror, kind of his baseline concept. Just packed with actors, but, barrels, barbed wire kind of stuff, machinery, tons of animatronics, but all industrial and kind of apocalyptic in vibe. And it was a really solid, good haunt. And I got to tell you though, I wasn't lingering because I was like, I got to go. I don't know what time it was already, but I was feeling like stressed. Like, how am I going to get to all these things? So I got to that one, and then we kind of went over, and there was one called like Massacre on Mahoning or something like that. It was like it was haunt number 3, and so went to that one. And sort of started out as a murder that happened at a home or something, and then it just went into all kinds of stuff. There were crazy catacombs of bone creatures, and it and a lot of it was a massive haunted house packed with all kinds of things. I mean, I never did get to figure out what the title was about. I'm sure it goes to some folklore in Ohio or something, but lots of stuff, rooms of spiders and caves, and anyway, a huge haunted house once again. Haunted house number 2. Each one of these like as long as like a regular haunted house.
Yeah.
Go to. And then the third one we went to was called the Abyss. And it was sort of like it started off, it was mainly sort of like a blackout show where you're walking through a lot of absolute darkness. But then it kind of got a nautical vibe going to it, and a lot of kind of weird sea creatures and stuff like that, and piratey stuff. And then you spit out of that one and you're in the pirate bar, which would be
pirate bar.
Bar number 5.
4, 5? Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see, we had Clown Bar, we had Poison Ivy Bar.
Ivy. Yeah.
I was number 5. And then you come out of that, and it's a huge bar with portholes and all this stuff, and it's just like you're in a ship. And when you're in the Abyss, you also see the one side of the ship, like you see the outside, and later on the bar is the inside. I assume it's part of the same thing, I guess. But anyway, we come out, and there's the bar, and there's a huge space. It's a big open space, tons of figures for photo ops, all kind of nautically themed. And then right next to it is this New Orleans giant bar, this 2-story bar, which is bar number 6. Essentially, the way this place seems to work, they have this bar crawl you can do too. So you come in. Oh yeah, that thing is showing there. That was actually painted, but they had projection mapping on it, so it was kind of stuttering and doing weird stuff. They had a lot of really cool murals, both on the outside of the building and on the interiors. Really well done. But you can go in and just go. There's a path kind of through the middle where you can just go to all these different bars. You can go on this bar crawl. I guess you get a pass to do the bar crawl, and then you can come in and go to all the bars and go to all the spaces and kind of go through all that. And you can kind of, and the haunts are just all kind of on one side. So you can go to the haunts or not. That's a choice, if you want to. But we're not done here. So 6 giant bars, okay?
Yep.
And then there's a Christmas area. So also he was explaining a lot of how all these things are going to flip for Christmas, and like certain huge sections, like I believe the Pirate Bar, the New Orleans Bar, all these things flip for Christmas. Some things do not; they just remain as they are. So it's a lot of stuff. But anyway, we went into this another section that I believe was around 50,000 square feet.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah.
It was massive, and it was packed with all the Christmas stuff you can imagine, like all the vendors that had the cool giant fiberglass things at TransWorld. Like, I don't know, they had like more than all of them put together. They like had everything there.
Oh yeah.
They're just getting it set up. I think they did it last year the first time, and this year they were kind of, really about to, they're about to get going. Haunt season is just ending, so they were setting up all. They had a giant gingerbread house. There's right there, just huge amounts of stuff over there, and they had a whole Santa kind of thing upstairs where you slide down a slide, like kind of Christmas Story. They have all that stuff going on. They have like a snow area. They have all these different fun activities. So this place, it's like it's got a massive creepy thing going on with the all the haunted houses and the kind of the creepy bars, but it's got this huge Christmas overlay that's happening as well. So anyway, we were able to once we've gone through all these things. Oh, and I finally made it around back to the first haunted house, just barely before they closed it. So I went to all four, and it was more of a had more of a medical theme. But I mean, I want to give it all away. I say too much. But anyway, so we got through all these bars. We looked at all this stuff. Also, I got a peek look at his production area, which is, of course, bigger than any haunted house. I mean, you in like, it's a warehouse to the ceiling of giant racks of stuff and just huge. I mean, most of us are like, we're lucky to be sawing 2x4s in a corridor. Like, I'm never going to get it done. But this place it was just insane. But so yes. We were able to go and have a little panel where we talked to him and to Kim and to the guy from Shank, the guy who he does it. What's the name of that? He's a vendor. What's the name of his company? Casket Creations or something like that.
Okay.
I bought so much stuff from him. He's a really great guy, but he runs a lab over there. So I think Dave Shank, is that right? But anyway, Rich would know if he was still here. He would know. But anyway, they're really good people. But anyway, we talked to them and a bunch of the other builders and folks who work there and asked a lot of questions. And they just told us everything about their plans and how they're doing all this stuff and how they have this kind of these ideas for taking it to the next level of entertainment, like with this sort of freeform walkthrough entertainment kind of situation going on. And it was, and how they're going to embrace Christmas, and I'll do all these different things. And it was just amazing, just the amount of stuff that's in that place.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's a huge, huge facility, but it is still packed with stuff, and it's got stuff that there it is. I don't think it's Shock. I think it's something like that, Tater, but close, very close. Yeah. So anyway, I think it's Shank, but I don't know. It's a matter of record. So, anyway,
Shank it is.
Oh, they all had their flannels. They had their flannels with their Factory of Terror.
Very dapper, very dapper.
Yeah, it was a pretty stylish look. Their kind of Halloween flannel shirts. So anyway, but anyway, it's just packed. It's packed with stuff, and they have all these plans. And the bars, like I said, it's not just like, oh, it's a dirty room with an old. No, they're like done up. I mean, the place is deluxe. It's very impressive. So, if you ever want to see the world's largest haunted house, or you want to get really, really drunk 6 times.
Oh yeah.
It's
it's like a city block long. I mean, it's a huge building, and I think it would be fair to say, John has more in storage than many haunted houses have on display. I mean, he's got so much stuff, and you could spend all night there and still need another day to get it all done.
Yeah, I mean, I was at the end, I was like tech walking these haunted houses. I was like, because I'm like, dark, so I was just kind of having fun. I'm like, oh god. But like the Black Hat one, I use the old trick. I just look up, you can see the ceiling. So I was like going along. Then I run into people that don't know that trick, and they're like, "Oh, help!" But, anyway, yeah, but it was an incredible experience, and all told, it was just a really great legendary haunt tour because we did see
Yeah.
some really really old classical attractions,
Yep.
and we saw Dent, which is like
Oh
top
yeah.
game, and then we see Factory Terror that is just that's just an amazing haunted house, and it's just going a whole new level with a whole new way of doing things. If you were an owner, you couldn't help but be inspired and challenged to kind of like, okay, uh, you know, I need something like this. It was very just over the top.
I got to step up my game. Right.
Oh yeah,
Right.
well that's what you always do. I mean, the day you think you're like anything great about yourself, you're a fool. Because
Right. Right.
I learned the best stuff from. You never know where you can go to an unassuming haunted house that you haven't really heard of. You go in and they do some crazy gag because some creative person pulled something out that from the depths of their mind. You're like, that I've never seen that. That is amazing. I always prefer, honestly, to be challenged by the original ideas, that people have, they come up with. So, and I was there, oh yeah, we used to do that. When did you do that again? It was my favorite. Why did we ever stop doing that? Exactly. Oh, we got bored with it because we done it so long and the customers didn't. So anyway.
Love it. Well, obviously a great job. I mean, we heard rave reviews. The folks were just so happy about it and they were partying until, the wee hours of the morning. So a great job to you and to Jen and to Rich and Anne Marie for putting this whole thing together. Outstanding job. I know the biggest question, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but the biggest question is always, where are we going next? What can you say as you're developing the plans for Legendary 25?
Oh yeah, there's another one.
There's definitely another one.
When people, and I heard a lot actually. I think Chris Stafford called me. Maybe it was last night. And he was like, "So where are we going next?" When you start asking that, you go like, "Hey, that must have been a good one," because they want to see another one. So I mean, so many people are so excited. Anyway, we're developing. We have multiple different tours and concepts that we're looking at, and sometimes it takes a couple years to cook it out to make sure the moment is right. The big challenge is the tough part with Legendary is you're trying to get at least two haunts, that have been around a long time and have a really strong following and a strong interest, so it's a challenge sometimes to find those within our proximity. And we've been to so many great ones over the years, but there's so many new ones that are growing and evolving. And there's other ones that are well worth going back to and seeing again because it's been a long time. And haunts, particularly good ones, tend to continuously evolve.
Yes.
We're working on a whole bunch of different ideas, and it's also made more challenging now because there's a lot of tours. So
yeah, it's true.
We have all the the Midwest Haunters tours, and then you have all now with East Coast. There's so many haunts. I'll tell you that Markov's Haunted Forest, that place is incredible. And I'm so excited that we need to go there on a Legendary Haunt tour at some point in the future. But I think people are going to love to see that one. And if we go see it during the regular season, like they have a whole huge outdoor program, which we weren't able to see, like a huge kind of corn maze and stuff like that. So maybe one day that'll be on Legendary, but not next year. I don't think. So yeah, we're working on it. I think we have probably a hard deadline at TransWorld. So the clock is ticking. So, yeah.
And I just want to second that. Like, it's amazing because I know people reach out to you directly, and I know they reach out to Jen and to Rich, and I've had a few myself, and that's what everybody wants to know, what's next. And that's a great sign that people are loving it and they just want to keep continuing to attend and have fun and be a part of these really fun tours with really great haunts, really great people. Knowledge is exchanged, and to Jenny's credit, a lot of great food.
Yeah, and apples. There were apples.
And apples.
A tour of apples and shots. Shots of the Factory Terror.
That's
Gosh.
perfect. That's perfect. Well, Ben, I'm so grateful. Thanks for taking some time with us today. Is there anything else you want to say about this year's tour as we wrap up our wrap up?
Well, it's been interesting because, I've been helping with these since the very first one, which I can't remember how long it was, but we moved to our new location. Netherworld did a number of years ago. And when we moved there, I didn't go to them anymore because I didn't feel comfortable leaving. And the only one I went to was the one we had there. So
Sure.
I didn't have to go anywhere. But last year was the first one that because I've got a really good team, and I mean, they can do it without me, so I kind of feel superfluous, but that's good. That means I can travel and go see these great haunts. But so yeah, this was the second one I've been able to, a legendary tour I've been able to go to, and I'm just excited myself to see these places. And that's the thing, I like to see them, and I like people to see them. I like getting together with haunters to discuss what happened, and I also like to find ones that I think need to be seen. That I think people will just be blown away by. And so I knew, seeing Factory of Terror so many years ago, I knew it was a good one. And I knew all the stuff in this show was worthy, so I'm glad that we went to them and it worked out great. So yeah. And anyway, thanks everyone who supports these tours, supports haunted houses, and comes out and see. It's so strange for me because, like, our season, we were open when the tour was on.
Yes. Yeah.
With the tour, but I'm on the tour and I'm getting texts and stuff about what's going on at the haunted house. And there were so many haunters that came to Netherworld, like, "Where's Ben? Where is he?" He's like, "Oh, like, I can't win." But no, it was we immediately, we were open that night. So my wife and I came, we went to this tour, and we got up at 6 a.m. We flew back because we had a wrap party. Was that last night? I don't even remember what day it is anymore. It was Sunday night. We had that was 2 nights ago. I don't even know. But anyway, yeah, we had a wrap party. That was just like boom into that. That's a huge thing. We had like 450 people there or something. It was crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a big
Wow.
one. So, but yeah, and then to work today, giant inflatables and dragging them through the mud. It was awesome. So.
The business we have chosen.
This is it. Yeah. So.
Well, Ben, on behalf of everybody as a part of the tour and everybody that's in the chat, thank you for all of your hard work putting together these very memorable tours where we get a chance to let our hair down a little bit, hang out, have some shots, have some apples, but also learn and get to experience some of the most legendary haunted attractions that we've ever known. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you guys for putting them on. It's always fun.
Yeah. And obviously, thanks to everybody from TransWorld. Thanks for you guys for joining us tonight. We appreciate you. And as soon as we have any information about 25, you'll definitely be the first to see it. We'll have to have Ben back on to drum roll it out for everybody. So
the pressure's on.
Well, we're grateful, sir. Thanks, everybody. And we'll see you next Tuesday, November 19th, for another episode of TransWorld Live. Thanks, everybody.